The rain hammered against the windshield as Margaret Crawford's Mercedes rolled through the flooded streets of downtown Atlanta. She wasn't supposed to be in this neighborhood. Her GPS had taken her through a detour, away from the safety of her gated community in Buckhead. Through the blur of water and darkness, she saw him, a figure huddled under a tattered blanket beside an overflowing dumpster. Something made her stop. Maybe it was the way his shoulders shook in the cold, or the fact that no one else seemed to exist on this abandoned street. Margaret grabbed the umbrella from her passenger seat and stepped out into the storm. "Sir? Are you okay?" she called out, her voice barely audible over the thunder. The man looked up, and their eyes met. Even through the grime and exhaustion on his face, she saw something that stopped her heart, a kindness, a depth, a soul that seemed to recognize hers. "I'm Marcus," he said simply, his voice rough but gentle. "And I'm fine, ma'am. You should get back to your car." But Margaret didn't leave. Instead, she did something that would change both their lives forever. She offered him her umbrella, her business card, and an invitation to the community shelter where she volunteered. What started as a moment of charity became something neither of them expected. Over the next 3 months, Margaret found herself drawn back to that shelter again and again. Marcus was different from anyone she'd ever known. Despite having nothing, he had wisdom that her wealthy friends lacked. Despite sleeping on cots, he had dignity that her ex-husband never possessed. They talked for hours. About life, dreams, disappointments, and second chances. Margaret began bringing him meals, then offering him odd jobs through her real estate company. Her friends warned her. Her family threatened to cut her off. Her business partners questioned her sanity. But Margaret was falling in love. Then came the night that shattered everything she thought she knew. Marcus had asked her to meet him at Piedmont Park at midnight. It was urgent, he said. His voice on the phone sounded different, stronger, more commanding. When Margaret arrived, she found Marcus standing under the pavilion lights, but he wasn't alone. Behind him stood 3 men in expensive suits. A black Rolls-Royce was parked nearby, its engine purring in the darkness. Marcus turned to face her, and for the first time, she saw him clean-shaven, his hair cut, wearing clothes that cost more than her monthly mortgage. "Margaret," he said, his voice steady, but filled with emotion. "There's something I need to tell you about who I really am." Margaret's legs felt weak. The umbrella slipped from her fingers and clattered onto the wet pavement. Her mind raced through every conversation, every shared meal, every moment she'd looked into Marcus's eyes and seen what she believed was genuine struggle and pain. "Who are you?" she whispered, her voice cracking. Marcus took a step forward, but Margaret instinctively stepped back. The hurt that flashed across his face seemed real, but now she questioned everything. "My full name is Marcus Okonkwo," he began, his accent shifting slightly, revealing hints of something she'd never noticed before. "I'm the CEO of Okonkwo Global Investments. My company manages over $2 billion in assets across Atlanta, Lagos, and Johannesburg." The words hit Margaret like physical blows. $2 billion. While she'd been bringing him sandwiches and secondhand jackets, he could have bought the entire shelter. Why? The question came out as barely a breath. "Why would you lie to me? Why would you pretend to be homeless?" Marcus's jaw tightened. 6 months ago, my brother died. Chitty was everything to me. My best friend, my business partner, my conscience. The autopsy said it was a heart attack, but I knew the truth. The stress of our world killed him. The greed, the fake friends, the people who only saw our bank accounts. He paused, his eyes glistening in the park lights. After his funeral, I walked out of my penthouse and kept walking. I gave up everything to understand what real life felt like. To see if anyone would see me, really see me, without the money, without the power, without the name. Margaret wrapped her arms around herself, trying to process this. And I was what? Some kind of test? An experiment? No. Marcus moved closer, and this time she didn't retreat. "You were the answer to a question I didn't know I was asking. Every wealthy woman I'd ever dated wanted my money, my status, my connections. But you? You gave me your time when you thought I had nothing. You listened to my stories when you believed I was nobody. One of the suited men behind Marcus cleared his throat. Mr. Okonkwo, we need to leave soon. The board meeting. Marcus held up a hand without looking back. Margaret, I know this is a shock. I know you probably hate me right now. But everything I told you about myself was true. My childhood in Nigeria, my mother's death, my struggles, all of it happened. I just left out what came after. Margaret's mind flashed back to their conversations. Marcus talking about his mother's wisdom, her strength despite poverty. The stories he'd shared about surviving, about building something from nothing. Had any of it been real? The job offers, she said slowly, anger building in her voice. The odd jobs I gave you, through my company. You were probably laughing at me the whole time. I never laughed, Marcus said firmly. I worked every job you gave me. I cleaned offices, moved furniture, painted walls. That warehouse you had me organize last month? I worked harder than I've worked in years, and it felt good. Honest. Margaret shook her head, tears streaming down her face. I defended you to everyone. My mother said I was throwing my life away. My business partners said I was being foolish. My ex-husband tried to have you arrested for God knows what. And I fought for you, because I thought. Her voice broke. I thought what we had was real. Marcus reached into his jacket and pulled out a small box. Margaret's heart lurched. This couldn't be happening. Not now, not like this. But when he opened it, there wasn't a ring inside. Instead, there was a key. This is the key to my brother's house, Marcus said quietly. Before he died, Chitty told me that when I found someone who loved me for who I was inside, not what I had outside, I should give them this. It's a place where we kept everything that mattered. Family photos, our mother's recipes, letters from when we first came to America with nothing. He held the key toward her. I'm not asking you to forgive me tonight. I'm not even asking you to understand. But I'm asking you to know that these past 3 months have been the most real thing in my life since Chitty died. Margaret stared at the key, her whole body trembling. Behind them, a car door slammed. A woman's voice cut through the night air. Well, isn't this touching? Margaret turned to see a tall, elegant black woman stepping out of a white Bentley, her heels clicking against the pavement. She was stunning, wearing a dress that probably cost more than Margaret's car. The woman's smile was cold as ice. Marcus, darling, you didn't tell me you'd be entertaining your little charity project tonight. Marcus's entire body went rigid. Destiny, what are you doing here? What am I doing here? The woman laughed, a sharp sound that made Margaret's skin crawl. I'm your fiancé, Marcus. Or did you forget that detail while you were playing homeless? The world seemed to tilt sideways. Margaret grabbed onto the pavilion railing to steady herself. Fiancé? The word echoed in her head like a scream in an empty room. Marcus's face had gone pale. Destiny, we ended that engagement 8 months ago. You know that. Did we? Destiny sauntered closer, her perfume expensive and suffocating. Because your father and my father still have the merger papers ready. Because society pages still list us as Atlanta's power couple. Because you never officially called it off, Marcus. You just disappeared. She turned her attention to Margaret, looking her up and down with barely concealed contempt. And who is this? Let me guess, you found her volunteering at some shelter, looking for purpose in her privileged little life? How noble. Margaret found her voice, though it shook with anger. I don't know who you are, but I'm not anyone's charity project. Oh, honey. Destiny's laugh was cruel. You don't even know what game you're playing. Marcus does this every few years. He gets overwhelmed by his responsibilities, runs away to play poor, finds some innocent woman to make him feel authentic, and then comes back to reality. I've watched him do it twice before. That's not true, Marcus said, but his voice lacked conviction. Isn't it? Destiny pulled out her phone and started scrolling. Let's see. 3 years ago, there was Sarah, the elementary school teacher. 2 years before that, Jennifer, the veterinary assistant. Both women who thought they'd found some diamond in the rough, some misunderstood soul. Want to know where they are now, Margaret? Sarah moved to Oregon and won't even say Marcus's name. Jennifer had a nervous breakdown. Margaret felt sick. She looked at Marcus, searching his face for denial, for proof that this woman was lying. But what she saw there was worse than confirmation. She saw shame. "Margaret, please," Marcus began, but she held up her hand. "Is it true? Have you done this before?" The silence stretched between them like a chasm. One of the suited men behind Marcus shifted uncomfortably. Finally, Marcus spoke, his voice barely audible. "I've struggled with my identity for years. After Chitty died, it got worse. But what I feel for you is different." "Different." Margaret's laugh was bitter. "That's what you told them too, wasn't it?" Destiny moved between them, positioning herself next to Marcus with the ease of someone claiming territory. "Look, Margaret, I'm actually doing you a favor. Marcus comes from a world you couldn't possibly understand. His father built an empire. His family has obligations across 3 continents. He needs someone who understands that world, who can navigate it. Someone like me." She placed a possessive hand on Marcus's arm. "We've known each other since we were children in Lagos. Our families have been planning this union for decades. Whatever fantasy he sold you during his little adventure, it ends now. The board meeting tomorrow will reinforce his position as CEO. The merger with my father's company will proceed, and Marcus will remember who he really is." Margaret looked at Marcus, waiting for him to shake off Destiny's hand, to defend what they had. But he just stood there, frozen, looking torn between 2 worlds. "Say something," Margaret whispered. "Tell me she's wrong. Tell me these past 3 months meant something." Marcus opened his mouth, then closed it. The suited men behind him were watching carefully, and Margaret suddenly understood. This wasn't just about love or truth. This was about power, money, and family legacy. Everything Marcus had supposedly run away from was standing right here, pulling him back. "I love you," Marcus finally said, and the words should have been enough. But the way he said them, defeated, exhausted, trapped, made them feel like goodbye. "But," Margaret prompted, her heart already breaking. "But she's right about one thing. My responsibilities, my family, the business, it's not something I can just walk away from forever. Chitty's death left a void, and if I don't fill it, everything he built, everything my parents sacrificed for, it all falls apart." Destiny smiled triumphantly. "There. See? He's already coming back to his senses." Margaret took a step back, then another. "You know what's sad, Marcus? I didn't fall in love with a homeless man. I fell in love with someone who seemed honest, who seemed real. But that person doesn't exist, does he? He was just another role you were playing." "That's not fair," Marcus protested. "Fair." Margaret's voice rose. "You let me introduce you to my mother. You sat at her table and ate her food and listened to her stories about my dead father. You held me when I cried about my divorce. You made me believe that someone could love me without wanting something from me. And all of it was a lie." She turned to leave, but Marcus grabbed her arm. "Please, just give me time to sort this out. I can make this right." Margaret looked down at his hand on her arm, clean now, with a gold watch peeking from under his sleeve that probably cost more than her yearly salary. She gently pulled away. "You want to know the real tragedy, Marcus? If you had been honest from the start, if you told me who you were, I might have fallen for you anyway. But now I'll never know what was real and what was performance." She walked toward her car, each step feeling like moving through water. Behind her, she could hear Destiny's voice, sharp and satisfied, talking about tomorrow's meeting and the merger and getting back to civilization. Margaret was almost to her Mercedes when she heard running footsteps. But it wasn't Marcus. One of the suited men approached her, slightly out of breath. "Miss Crawford? I'm James, Mr. Okonkwo's attorney." He handed her a business card and an envelope. "You should know something. The other women Miss Abimbla mentioned? They don't exist. I've worked for the Okonkwo family for 15 years. Marcus has never done anything like this before." Margaret stared at the envelope. "Then why didn't he say that?" James glanced back at where Marcus and Destiny were arguing in heated whispers. "Because Miss Abimboula's father controls 40% of Okonkwo Global's international contracts. If Marcus contradicts her publicly, he doesn't just lose a fiancé, He loses his company and destroys his brother's legacy. He nodded toward the envelope. Open that when you get home. And Miss Crawford? In all my years working for Marcus, I've never seen him look at anyone the way he looks at you. Not even close. Before Margaret could respond, James walked back to the group. She stood there, gripping the envelope, her mind racing. As she finally drove away, she looked in her rearview mirror and saw Marcus watching her go, and for a moment, she could have sworn she saw the man she'd fallen in love with, vulnerable, alone, and drowning in a life he didn't know how to escape. Margaret drove through the rain-slicked streets of Atlanta, her hands shaking on the steering wheel. The envelope from James sat on the passenger seat like a bomb waiting to explode. She made it halfway home before pulling into an empty parking lot, unable to wait any longer. Inside the envelope was a flash drive and a handwritten letter. Margaret recognized Marcus's handwriting immediately. She'd seen it on the notes he used to leave for her at the shelter. Simple messages thanking her for her kindness. The letter read, "Margaret, if you're reading this, then everything has fallen apart the way I feared it would. I wrote this 3 weeks ago, when I realized I was in love with you and knew I couldn't hide the truth much longer. Watch what's on this drive. Then decide if I'm worth a second chance. The choice is yours. I'll respect whatever you decide. Always, Marcus." Margaret's hands trembled as she inserted the drive into her laptop. A video file appeared, dated 2 months earlier. She clicked play. The video showed Marcus in what looked like a private office, but he was dressed as she'd always known him, in worn clothes, his beard full, his eyes tired. He was speaking to the camera. "My name is Marcus Okonkwo, and I'm recording this as a testimony of truth. In case something happens to me, or in case the truth needs to be told." He took a deep breath. 6 months ago, my brother Chitty died. The official report said heart attack, but I know it was murder disguised as natural causes. Margaret's breath caught. Marcus continued, "Chitty discovered that someone within our company was embezzling millions and funneling it through fake international contracts. He was going to expose them. 3 days later, he was dead. The coroner was paid off. The investigation was buried. I couldn't prove anything, but I knew." He leaned closer to the camera. "I went underground not to find myself, but to stay alive long enough to find evidence. Living on the streets meant I was invisible. It meant whoever killed Chitty wouldn't see me as a threat. I've been working with a federal investigator, gathering proof. And I found it." Marcus held up a folder. "Destiny Abimbola and her father have been stealing from Okonkwo Global for 3 years. They created shell companies, fake contractors, phantom employees. They've taken over $40 million. And when Chitty discovered it, they killed him." The video showed Marcus's face crumbling with grief. "My brother died trying to protect our family's legacy. I won't let his death be meaningless. But to catch them, I had to let them think I'd broken down, that I'd given up. I had to let them believe they'd won." He wiped his eyes and looked directly at the camera. "I never expected to meet someone like Margaret Crawford. She wasn't part of the plan. She was supposed to be just another volunteer at just another shelter. But she saw me, really saw me. And for the first time since Chitty died, I felt like living might be worth it again." The video jumped to a different date, more recent. Marcus looked cleaner, more determined. "If you're watching this, Margaret, it means destiny has made her move. She knows I'm getting close to exposing her. The engagement she's claiming? It was a business arrangement our fathers made when we were children, but I officially ended it when I discovered her involvement in the embezzlement. She's pretending otherwise because she needs me under control. If I marry her, the investigation stops. If I publicly accuse her without ironclad evidence, her father's lawyers will destroy me and bury the truth forever." Marcus leaned forward. "Tomorrow night, the federal agents are ready to move. They have warrants, evidence, everything they need. But destiny is dangerous. If she suspects anything, she'll disappear, and we'll never get justice for Chitty. I need her to believe she's won. I need her to think I'm broken and compliant. His voice caught. "I need you to understand that every word I said to you is true. Every feeling was real. You weren't part of an investigation or a disguise. You were the light that kept me human while I lived in the darkness. I love you, Margaret. And I'm so sorry for the pain I'm about to cause you. The video ended. Margaret sat in her car, tears streaming down her face. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Miss Crawford, this is Agent Torres, FBI. You are seen with Marcus Okonkwo tonight. For your safety and the integrity of our investigation, please do not contact him or discuss this with anyone. We move tomorrow at 6 p.m. James has my number if you need to reach me. Another text came through, this time from her mother. Maggie, turn on the news. Now. With shaking hands, Margaret pulled up a news app on her phone. The headline made her stomach drop. Billionaire CEO Marcus Okonkwo announces engagement to Destiny Abimbola, uniting two of Atlanta's most powerful families. Below is a photo from tonight. Marcus in his expensive suit, Destiny clinging to his arm, both of them smiling for cameras that Margaret hadn't even noticed were there. The article detailed a lavish engagement party planned for tomorrow evening at the Okonkwo estate. Margaret's phone rang. It was her best friend, Tasha. Girl, please tell me that's not the same Marcus you've been seeing, Tasha said without preamble. Margaret couldn't speak. She just stared at the photo. Marcus looking every inch the billionaire CEO, so different from the man who'd helped her move furniture last week, who'd made her laugh with stories about accidentally dyeing his hair green as a child in Lagos. Maggie? You there? I'm here, Margaret whispered. Tasha, I need you to come over. I have something you need to see. An hour later, Tasha sat in Margaret's living room, watching the video for the second time. When it ended, she looked at Margaret with wide eyes. This is insane. You're dating a billionaire who's secretly investigating his fiancée for murdering his brother. He's not my boyfriend, Margaret said automatically. And she's not really his fiancée. Does she know that? Tasha pointed at the news article still displayed on Margaret's laptop. Because she sure looks like she thinks she's one. Margaret stood and paced the room. The FBI moves tomorrow at 6. That engagement party is at 7. She's planning to use that party to solidify their relationship publicly, make it harder for Marcus to back out. So, what are you going to do? Margaret thought about Marcus's face in the park, the way he looked torn between two worlds. She thought about his brother Chitty, who died trying to do the right thing. She thought about Destiny's cruel smile and her poisonous words. And she thought about the man who'd sat with her in that shelter, who'd listened to her talk about her father's death, who'd held her hand and made her believe in love again. I'm going to that party, Margaret said firmly. Tasha jumped up. Are you crazy? The FBI said to stay away. They said not to contact Marcus or discuss the investigation. I won't. But that woman has already taken too much from him. She took his brother, his peace, his ability to trust. I'm not letting her take his future too. Margaret grabbed her phone and called James, Marcus's attorney. He answered on the first ring. Miss Crawford, I hoped you'd call. The engagement party tomorrow, can you get me in? There was a pause. That's a very dangerous idea. Can you do it? Another pause. Yes. But Miss Crawford, you should know that Marcus is falling apart. Destiny has him surrounded by her people. She's been feeding him something we think sedatives in his drinks, to keep him compliant. He's not himself. Margaret's blood ran cold. She's drugging him? We can't prove it yet, but yes. The FBI knows, but they can't move until they catch her with the financial evidence. If they raid too early, her lawyers will claim harassment and the case falls apart. Then I guess I need to make sure Marcus stays safe until 6 p.m. tomorrow. Margaret's voice was steel. Send me the details. As she hung up, Tasha grabbed her arm. Maggie, this is literally a murder investigation. You could get hurt. Margaret thought about Marcus's words in the video. You were the light that kept me human while I lived in the darkness. Then I guess it's time for me to return the favor, she said. Outside, thunder rumbled, and lightning split the sky. Tomorrow would change everything one way or another. The Okonkwo estate was everything Margaret had imagined and nothing she was prepared for. The mansion sprawled across 5 acres in Buckhead, with fountains lit in gold and white and luxury cars lining the circular driveway. Women dripped in diamonds, men wore custom suits, and everyone looked like they belonged in a magazine. Margaret felt exposed in her simple black dress, the nicest thing she owned, but James had gotten her name on the guest list under her real estate company's credentials. "You're here as a business associate," he'd coached her. "Stay calm, blend in, and whatever you do, don't let Destiny know who you really are." Margaret entered through the main doors at 5:30 p.m. She had 30 minutes before the FBI arrived. 30 minutes to find Marcus and make sure he was safe. The ballroom was already crowded with Atlanta's elite. A string quartet played softly in one corner while servers circulated with champagne. And there, at the center of it all, stood Marcus and Destiny. Margaret's heart clenched. Marcus looked pale, almost hollow. His eyes were glazed, and he swayed slightly as Destiny kept a firm grip on his arm, parading him around like a trophy. She was introducing him to various guests, doing all the talking while Marcus just nodded mechanically. "He's definitely drugged," whispered a voice beside her. Margaret turned to find James, dressed in a tuxedo, holding 2 champagne flutes. He handed her one. "Don't drink it. Just hold it, so you look natural." "How do we get him away from her?" Margaret asked. "We don't. We wait for the FBI. They're in position outside, ready to move at 6. James checked his watch. 28 minutes. But then Destiny's father took the microphone. Victor Abimbola was an imposing man with silver hair and cold eyes. "Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us tonight. It is my great pleasure to announce the union of 2 great families, 2 great companies, and 2 great futures. My daughter Destiny and Marcus Okonkwo will be married 1 month from today." The crowd erupted in applause. Margaret watched as Destiny kissed Marcus's cheek while cameras flashed. Marcus's expression was blank, disconnected, like he wasn't even present in his own body. "That's new information," James muttered. 1 month? They're rushing this. Margaret understood immediately. They want to marry him before the investigation catches up to them. If they're married, she might have legal protections. Exactly. And if he signs the merger papers tonight, which I'm sure they're planning, they'll have access to everything. Margaret's mind raced. She couldn't wait for the FBI. Every minute Marcus stood there, drugged and vulnerable, Destiny was tightening her control. Margaret had spent 3 months learning who Marcus really was, the strong man hiding behind the homeless exterior. That man wouldn't want to be a puppet in his own life. She made a decision. "Create a distraction," Margaret told James.
"What? No,"
the FBI said. "I don't care what they said. Look at him, James. She's destroying him right now, in front of everyone. I'm not watching her win for even 1 more minute." Before James could stop her, Margaret walked straight toward the center of the room. Her heart pounded, but she kept her shoulders back and her head high. She'd faced down racist clients, a bitter divorce, and her own family's disappointment. She could face this. "Excuse me," Margaret said loudly, interrupting Victor Abimbola mid-speech. "I have something to say." The room went silent. Every eye turned to her. Destiny's face transformed from surprise to fury in an instant. "Security," Destiny snapped. "Remove this woman." "My name is Margaret Crawford," Margaret continued, her voice steady and clear. "And I'm the woman Marcus Okonkwo has been seeing for the past 3 months. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Destiny's eyes turned to ice. "You're the charity case. How did you even get in here?" "I got in here because I belong anywhere I choose to be," Margaret said firmly. "But more importantly, I'm here because the man you're drugging and parading around isn't capable of consent right now. Look at him." The crowd shifted uncomfortably, actually looking at Marcus, really looking for the first time. His unfocused eyes, his pallor, the way he swayed on his feet. "She's insane," Destiny declared. "Marcus is just tired. We've been planning this event for weeks." "Then let him speak for himself," Margaret challenged. "Marcus, do you want to marry this woman?" Marcus's eyes struggled to focus on Margaret. For a moment, nothing happened. Then slowly, painfully, recognition dawned in his face. "Margaret." His voice was slurred but genuine. "You came?" I came, she said softly. And I watched your video. I know everything, Marcus. About Chitty, about the embezzlement, about all of it. You don't have to do this alone anymore. That's enough. Victor, Abimbala roared. Security, escort this woman out immediately. Two large men in suits started toward Margaret, but suddenly James stepped forward, along with three other men she recognized from the park. Marcus's real team. I don't think so, James said calmly. Miss Crawford is here as a guest, and she has every right to speak. Besides, I think everyone here would be very interested to know why Mr. Abimbala is so eager to silence her. This is absurd, Destiny snarled. Daddy, do something. But before Victor could respond, the main doors burst open. FBI agents flooded into the ballroom, led by a woman in a dark suit holding up a badge. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Special Agent Torres. Victor and Destiny Abimbala, you're under arrest for embezzlement, wire fraud, and conspiracy to commit murder. Chaos erupted. Guests scattered. Destiny screamed accusations. Victor tried to run but was immediately tackled by agents. Margaret pushed through the confusion to reach Marcus, who had collapsed into a chair, his head in his hands. Marcus, she said gently, kneeling beside him. Look at me. He raised his head, and despite the drugs in his system, his eyes were clearing. You believed me. After everything, you believed me. I watched your video. I saw the truth. Margaret took his hand. Your brother would be proud of you. Tears streamed down Marcus's face. I was so scared. These past few hours, I couldn't think straight. Destiny kept giving me drinks, and everything got fuzzy. I wanted to fight, but I couldn't. It's over now, Margaret assured him. The agents have everything they need. James made sure of it. Agent Torres approached them, her expression professional but not unkind. Mr. Okonkwo, we need you to come to the hospital to get checked out and give your statement. Miss Crawford, we'll need to speak with you as well. As paramedics arrived to assess Marcus, he refused to let go of Margaret's hand. Come with me, he asked. Please. I'm not going anywhere, she promised. The next few hours were a blur of hospitals, police statements, and news crews. By midnight, Margaret and Marcus finally found themselves alone in a private room at Piedmont Hospital. The drugs had worn off, and Marcus was lucid but exhausted. I owe you everything, he said quietly. You risked your safety, your reputation, everything for me. Margaret sat on the edge of his hospital bed. You did the same for your brother. For justice. That's who you are, Marcus, homeless or billionaire. You're someone who does the right thing even when it's hard. I should have told you the truth earlier, Marcus said. About who I was, what I was doing. I was just so afraid that if you knew I had money, you'd see me differently. Everyone always does. I fell in love with your character, not your circumstances, Margaret said simply. Whether you were homeless or a CEO didn't matter. What mattered was that you were kind, honest, and brave. Those things don't change based on your bank account. Marcus pulled her closer. I meant what I said in the video. I love you, Margaret Crawford. And if you'll give me a chance, a real chance, with no more secrets or lies, I want to build something true with you. Margaret smiled, finally allowing herself to feel the happiness that had been fighting to break through all the fear and chaos. I'd like that. But Marcus? Let's take it slow. We've had enough drama for a lifetime. He laughed, the sound rich and genuine. Agreed. Though I should warn you, my family is going to want to meet the woman who saved me from a criminal mastermind. My mother is already booking a flight from Lagos. I look forward to it, Margaret said. But first you need to rest. You've been through a lot. As she started to leave, Marcus caught her hand one more time. Thank you for seeing me. The real me. Both versions. Margaret squeezed his hand. Thank you for being worth seeing. 3 months later, Margaret and Marcus stood together at a community center ribbon-cutting ceremony. They'd partnered to create a resource center for homeless individuals, not just a shelter, but a place offering job training, mental health services, and real pathways to stability. It was funded by the Okonkwo Foundation, established in Chitty's memory. My brother believed in using our blessings to lift others, Marcus told the gathered crowd. And I learned from someone very special that true wealth isn't measured in money, but in the lives we touch and the love we share. He looked at Margaret, who stood beside him in her simple professional dress, refusing to change who she was even as she navigated Marcus's world. She was still volunteering at shelters, still running her real estate business, still the same woman who'd stopped her car in the rain for a stranger. The difference was now that stranger stood beside her as her partner, her equal, and her love. As the crowd applauded and cameras flashed, Marcus leaned close and whispered, "What would you have done in that situation? If you were me, would you have gone undercover?" Margaret smiled. "I think we both know I did exactly what you did. I took a risk on someone everyone else told me to ignore. We're more alike than different, you and I." "Good thing we found each other then," Marcus said. "Good thing," Margaret agreed. And as they cut the ribbon together, opening doors for others the way they'd opened doors for each other, Margaret realized that sometimes the most unexpected journeys lead us exactly where we're meant to be. Not to fairy tale endings, but to real, honest beginnings, the kind built on trust, sacrifice, and the courage to see people for who they truly are. Now, before we end, I want to hear from you. Where are you watching from? Drop your country or city in the comments below. I love seeing our global community. And here's a question for you. What would you have done if you were Margaret at that engagement party? Would you have stayed quiet and waited for the FBI? Or would you have spoken up like she did? Have you ever had to take a risk to save someone you loved? Share your thoughts and stories in the comments. I read every single one. If this story touched your heart, please hit that like button and subscribe to our channel for more incredible stories every week. Share this with someone who needs to hear that real love sees beyond circumstances and that courage can change everything. Thank you for being here, and I'll see you in the next story.